Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for coming on the Thrival Nutrition podcast. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, thank you. Let us know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So, my name is Jessica Stopard. I'm a holistic nutritionist, and I really love helping women stop feeling so crappy. You know, when you've tried a lot of things and you feel like you're doing all of the right things and you kind of feel like you're at your wit's end. And I like helping women shift out of that, and I really like using an elimination diet and covering food sensitivities. Green smoothies are a big part of that, and so I'm really excited to be able to chat about that today because I have personally gone through that experience of, I'm not labeled with any disease. And I think that, while it's great to have a labeled diagnosis, there's a lot of us walking around what I like to call vaguely unwell, and you don't have to feel vaguely unwell. And so that's why I personally found and have helped now a lot of women find relief from feeling vaguely unwell.
That's awesome. And I'm so glad that we're covering this topic because as a nutritionist too, I do this a lot. Because like you said, there's with certain food and food sensitivities, it can be something that is healthy, like a healthy food that people may love, like almonds, for an example. So
Right.
having that elimination diet is really essential and especially a good way or a good place to start. So tell us, what is the elimination diet?
Sure. I know a lot of people hear that word, both elimination, scary, dieting, and people are like, no, no more dieting. So I'm really glad that you asked that. So I view an elimination diet as really broken down into three phases of detox, elimination, and reintroduction. So it removes the most common allergens, which people might define that a little bit differently, but I define it as gluten, dairy, corn, eggs, soy, chocolate, red meat, yeast, nuts, citrus, nightshades, and refined sugar. And you do this for 2 weeks or until your symptoms subside or you're at what I like to call a clean slate state or factory settings, that state that you're looking for. And then from there, you follow the reintroduction phase where you test those foods one at a time and figure out which foods are and not well tolerated by your body and ultimately build yourself personalized, customized diet.
Yes. And I think you found me when I did my food sensitivity episode,
Yes.
and talking about like the MRT and stuff. And it's funny because you say like allergens, but that technically, like you said, it doesn't always mean allergies, just something that you're sensitive to, which people do have. And I feel like that's why some people are like, but I'm not allergic to any foods. But that doesn't mean, like you said, like it doesn't mean that it's not affecting, inflaming our body in a certain different way. So what are the key things that we should know about the elimination diet? And I like how you said like elimination scary, diets people don't want to do. And it does sound way scarier than it's honestly not that bad, I think.
Yeah, I know. And probably why it's not so scary is you also probably like, or as like myself, elimination diet, we tend to be turning to that after we have tried a couple of things. And what we don't realize is even though we can view those first couple of things as unsuccessful or failures, or we didn't find anything out, that's actually baby stepping your way towards a healthier lifestyle. And that's why I think the elimination diet ends up not being as scary as it sounds, because we have like dipped our toes in those waters of playing around with different things. And you can really make it as you end up building yourself a customized diet, you can really customize the process as
Yeah.
well and make it your own.
Yeah.
So really common is people will ask, okay, so how long is the elimination diet? And there is no answer to that because it's going to be personalized, right? And we would love to put a time frame on that because we like working that way, knowing how long that we are going to be on something. But we don't know how fast our body is going to heal. And it's different, right? We all come into this process with a different health history. We've had symptoms with varying degrees for varying lengths of time, and we can rush the, healing of our body, but ultimately that just muddies our results, right? So what I mean by jumping ahead and muddying our results is, sure, you can go ahead, move on to reintroduction phase itself, or move on to testing a new food. But if you're not feeling so great, now you're not sure, okay, was it the last food that I ate that is making me feel not great, or is it this current food? And that's going to slow everything down in the long run. So you feel like you're speeding it up, but ultimately you're not, right?
Right.
And I'm really glad that you brought up the allergies. I think that it is great that we are aware of allergies, but we definitely are thinking about more severe reactions, anaphylactic reactions, and the testing that we would be thinking of is that skin prick testing. And that skin prick testing is really testing the true allergies. And you can walk out of that test with clear results because those reactions are going to be happening basically right away or within an hour or two. And so you'll know that, you know, certain foods or certain pollens or whatever you do have an allergy to. And that is really testing an IgE response. So an IgE is just a short form for immunoglobulin E, as you know, but just so your audience knows, and that's just one part of our immune system. And food sensitivities or intolerances, they're usually the non-IgE responses, and that's a different part of our immune system. And those, what you eat today, the thing that I find, the fact that I find to be most mind-blowing is what you eat today can have an effect on your body for up to 72 hours. So you're probably not waiting in your doctor's office for 72 hours to see if you have a reaction, right? And if we think of all the different foods that we eat in 72 hours, of course, this could get confusing, or we can make those assumptions of, well, I only have a little bit of, you know, dairy or creamer in my coffee, so I don't really eat dairy, but that's really provoking your immune system every single day. And we're just assuming and deciding that that's a small amount. So it's really important to know that, and that can really seem overwhelming, but I actually view it as empowering because it means, of course, you haven't caught something yet, so let's try to catch that and find out what's triggering those symptoms.
Yes. And I think I was thinking back when I said the testing, why I brought it up is because the elimination diet is a good, cheaper way to also get that, figuring out what works for your body, because most people, let's be honest. So I'll link back in my show notes on when I was talking about the food sensitivity testing, because most of them on the market are really junky and they don't look deep enough. Like you said with the IgE, but even just IgG testing is really popular, but that still doesn't go deep enough for my standards, because I want to make sure that I'm getting accurate information and not like false positives or false negatives.
Exactly.
But the elimination diet's a cheaper way to do it because most people don't want to hash out $400, $500 on food sensitivity testing, which it is quicker. I mean, I guess you do figure out which foods you are sensitive to. But like you said, the whole process is very empowering. And it is a good option for a lot of people, like I said, that aren't ready to blow money on like a big test. So why is elimination diet not traditional dieting?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this because this is something that I feel really passionately about and has almost actually sometimes deterred me from sharing the elimination diet because of the confusion towards dieting, because I am not somebody who focuses on weight loss. I view weight loss really as a symptom rather than a root cause that we need to rectify. And unfortunately, that word diet is in there. And the only reason that diet is in there is because this is a short-term process. When you move through an elimination diet, like you're not living in an elimination phase forever just to give yourself a pat on the back, see how long you can diet for, right? We want to do it so that we can build ourselves that custom diet, uncover our hidden food sensitivities, right? I don't think that eliminating foods is a bad thing, which is kind of conflicting, I guess, with body positivity and intuitive eating, because if you aren't feeling well, then the fact of the matter is certain foods are triggering some symptoms, and we can go about it in a way that, yes, might be restrictive, but is not deprivational. I always say to my clients, if you're hungry, eat. You just have to eat from these foods temporarily.
Right.
You know, strategically and intentionally, so that, you know, you want to go about it in the right way with the right mindset. So that mindset difference really is that through an elimination diet, health is your motivation. And with traditional dieting, you know, weight loss, body manipulation, that's really the only goal. Even if we go into something and we tell ourselves it's something else, like feeling better, I think a lot of women in the back of their mind are thinking about, you know, flattening the tummy, losing some weight, and that's great, and maybe that will help you, but ultimately we really want to redirect the mindset to thinking about our health so that you can really live your life in the way that you want, right? And one more thing in the difference there is that a key thing in traditional dieting is that fat is missing, and so we really fear fat. So talking about getting confused by the word diet, we unfortunately, English chose to say fat, body fat and dietary fat have that same word. And so then we fear fat because we think we eat fat and we're going to get fat. But it's really important to have quality fats in your diet, because that's going to help with so many things, from brain health to heart health to hormonal health. But I think that it's really important that we're not going into it. Maybe you have it a little bit, and that's where coaching can really help, is redirect your mindset into really achieving health, so that we're not avoiding foods to lose weight. We're avoiding foods to gain health.
Right. I like that. And it's so funny because we got to think of our whole life as, a long time, years, right? And so funny when we want to eliminate foods, I'm like 4 weeks, or whatever it is, like you can do this 4 weeks out of your long life. So it isn't a long-term thing. And I was just like, I actually ranted on my Instagram stories yesterday. I was just like, this is hard. Or they seem like it's going to be hard. And I always say, like, no, cancer is hard. Heart disease is hard. Diabetes is hard. You want to talk about hard? It is not the elimination diet. It's a transition, and it may be different, but it's not, hard. And especially like with people like me and you that are there to help you and guide you through that, it makes it easier, if anything. So what are some mistakes to avoid on the elimination diet? I think I know you mentioned one of not introducing way too many foods too quickly.
Yes, that's really important. And I also mentioned another one of being into that deprivational mindset. So you have to make that big change between, depending on where you're starting from, it could be a really big change about which foods you are eating and not eating. So that is restrictive. But if then on top of it, you're also depriving yourself food, so now you can't have the foods you like and you're hungry all the time, that's just a episode for the recipe for disaster, right? And then, I always say if we go back to having that dieting mentality, then when we slip up, we're thinking about cheating on our diet. And you know what? I honestly don't care if you cheat on your diet. You can decide what you put in your body. It's just going to lengthen the process. Yep. It's going to take longer for you to reach that clean slate state or that factory setting state where you feel good. You can move into the reintroduction phase, or it's going to muddy up your results, right? And I also think that a key mistake is that, if we think about that food sensitivity testing, because, okay, let's just say that the tests are perfect and they're not flawed, and you're handed this piece of paper and you have your perfect diet. Okay, then what? You haven't had, the elimination diet is not just about cutting out foods. It's also about what are you reintroducing? How are you going about restoring and repairing your gut? Because your gut has been damaged by the way that you've been living your life, or the things that you've been taking, or the thoughts that you've been thinking. And so that really, the length of that process is there to help you restore your gut, as well as to build solid habits like eating vegetables, right? I know this is such a boring thing for nutritionists to have to suggest. And, my deep, dark nutritionist secret is I'm a reformed picky eater who hated vegetables. So to be able to say, that you're actually eating vegetables every single day in, good qualities or quantities and variety of them, we write that off as being way too simple of a solution, but are any of us actually doing it? No, the stats are so low on how many of us are eating vegetables. And so that gives us time, the length, if we're sticking to it. It's not about being bad and failed and cheating if we don't stick to it. It's about restoring the gut and building good habits. So I would really say that mistakes are eat when you're hungry from the list that you have. And also changing the mindset to health, as well as preparation. Let's just make sure I get this in here. Preparation is another super boring. I feel the eye rolls from everyone when you suggest this. Eat your vegetables and be prepared.
I know.
But it really makes all of the difference. The people who fail are not preparing, and that means having a meal plan ready. That means doing your grocery shopping, and that means chopping up your veggies, making some meals, getting yourself ready, because you're going to notice that if you don't have any food ready, it's a wild world out there and you can't eat anything, which could be scary, but isn't that kind of eye-opening? Like, this is why we're all in the predicament we're in. We can't go out anywhere to eat and get something unless it's a single ingredient, because there's something in everything, right?
Yes.
So Oh yeah,
I know preparation is key. And I know people say they don't have time, but they're browsing Facebook or they're watching Netflix shows. Do all that when you're prepping. I mean, I was just doing that yesterday on Sunday, and I try to, like you said, prep as many vegetables, because since vegetables are supposed to be a huge part of our diet, it's way easier to throw pre-cooked roasted broccoli with your eggs, which is something that I do all the time. And eat that together versus like taking frozen broccoli in the morning and roasting it. Like, who's going to do that? No one's going to do that.
No, yeah,
And then we just become not eating enough vegetables because it's just not, we're not prepared. We're not actually putting that into place. So, same with things of like quinoa or whatever it is. No one's going to be making quinoa for lunch. Like, no one's pulling out their pots and water and
in the morning.
Quinoa. No, like, we need to like be prepared, and it's definitely a habitual thing. So like once you get into the habit of, you know, over the weekend, you know, being prepared for the week, and honestly that does make the elimination diet so much easier when you are prepared, which is our next question of like some hacks to make the elimination diet much easier.
Right. So that's definitely a new skill when we build any new habit, right? So of course, in the beginning, it might be a little bit longer when you're prepping your veggies, but you will get more into the flow and you'll find a way you like doing it. Maybe it's with your favorite show on or your favorite podcast, listening to this podcast,
Yes.
It makes it more enjoyable. Or maybe you can involve your family. Maybe it's easier to involve them and they get excited about it. Or maybe it's just like, get out of the kitchen. This is my time, right? It's about doing what works for you and being gentle with yourself through that. And if in the beginning that means, you know, doing, if you live in an area where you can get produce delivered to you, like doing it online and getting it delivered, or now, you know, we have here in Canada, we have the big grocery stores have online shopping. So don't beat yourself up if that's the way you have to go. If you're going online and buying the veggies that are like fresh but already peeled and chopped, like you're not a failure for that. It means you're taking action rather than saying it's too much for me, right? And you're making it yourself. Another hack that I have is smoothies. So smoothies really helped me through the elimination diet, and that's a habit that I still live and breathe every day because they're great if you're lazy, and I am a lazy person and I was able to follow the elimination diet, so I know that anybody else can as well. And doing with a smoothie, you know, as you have these restrictions, it is a little bit challenging and new to figure out what to eat, so you can throw in what you can all into the blender and you can have that for breakfast or any meal or for a couple meals of the day. When you're making them nutritionally balanced, you're not starving yourself. It's not unhealthy to be on smoothies for too long. I've been on smoothies pretty much every single day for almost 2 years and I'm not withering away. So you can, it's possible, right? So that is definitely a really great hack. And then I think that the mindset thing, I know I keep coming to that, but mindset plays such a big role in this journey. Not thinking about it as a diet, not thinking about it as any label, just free yourself from labels, because that's ultimately what this process is doing. You're not sticking, yes, the elimination diet is one solution, but really I view it more as a tool to help you find out what your diet is. And when I say diet in this instance, I just mean the foods that you eat on a daily basis that don't trigger any symptoms. And so really switching that mindset, because I'm going to tell you that the elimination diet is not just physical. As you do a bit of a detox, a lot of emotions come out for a lot of women. So being prepared for that. And if you are thinking about this in a gentle, nurturing, positive way, free from labels, free from failures, you can't fail if you're always moving forward. I mean, I know that's not such a quick and dirty practical tip, but I don't want anyone to jump into it and then have a big wake-up call with the emotions flowing.
Yes.
So.
One more question that popped up in my head is like, when someone has a food sensitivity, is it forever?
No, I love that you asked that. So that is like, I've just got goosebumps. I'm so excited that you asked that. Because food allergies, unfortunately, are forever, but food sensitivities are not necessarily forever. And so as you go through this process, even if it is feeling a bit longer, by the time you move through testing all of the foods, that's usually a long enough time. I recommend 2 to 3 months before testing a food again that you've tested that gave a negative result. And a negative result means triggering any symptom, physical or mental, emotional.
Right.
So a lot of the times this happens, your body just needs a little more restoration, a little more help. And so you will find that you can bring a lot of foods back in. Or you, through the process, you'll find, you know what, this food triggered like one loose stool, right? Okay, another food has me doubled over in pain, excruciating. It's going to be a lot easier for me to avoid that other food, and I get to make more empowered decisions. And when I avoid those foods that have me doubled over in pain for longer, then your body might be like, hey, I'm ready to let that food in. Because when your digestive system is operating efficiently,
Mm-hmm.
that means that we actually break down foods to a molecular level and it renders them inallergenic. So technically, if we were operating like perfect machines, but we're not machines, then you would be able to have any food, right? For sensitivities anyways. So
Yeah.
that should be really exciting, right? I love treating my body as an experiment, really, right? This is not something to have an end date. It's just I'm learning more about my body along the way. And then because we then don't put that end date on,
Right.
we're not going to want to get to the end and then go back to our old way of eating that got us to this place that we started. We don't want to go back there, right?
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that, but I'm also glad that you're mentioning mindset because it is a big deal. I've had clients that don't have the best mindset. They just are like dreading it, or they just don't think they can do it. And I mean, I can do as much as I can in encouraging and just reassuring, but I definitely see faster or just better quality results and more happiness and not as much stress when someone's just like, okay, this isn't forever. I am going to do this for my body. Like, I want to know, how my body functions, and I want to get feeling my best. And then I find the people that dread it, and it's just like a pain. It's just like a ball and chain. And I'm like, no,
Right.
you cannot think like that.
That stress is going to affect your digestion, right?
Yes. So I'm so glad that you covered all that goodness. Where can we find you on the interweb?
Yes. Well, I have a blog at jessicastopard.com, my name. And then on Instagram, that's my favorite place to hang out. So that's Jessica Nutrition. I love chatting on stories. I know you said you were having a rant on stories. You can just really get real in there and share like behind the scenes and what real life is like now that Instagram is so curated, right?
Yes.
But I'm also on Facebook at Jessica Stopard RHN. And I have a free beginner's guide to food sensitivities that really opens your eyes to a few more things and expands on what we were chatting about today. So
Perfect. I'll put those in the show notes that people can
awesome.
grab.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on.